City Council meeting to order. Thank you for being here. You can all please rise and join in the pledge of allegiance. Ready? Begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please.
Councilman Carter? Here. Councilmember Davis?
Here.
Councilmember Hepburn?
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Rosales is absent, and Mayor Kendrick.
Here. We'll move to item 4, announcements. We have one announcement, and George May from the library. George?
Good evening, Mayor, council members, city staff, and residents. We're going to be talking about our March lineup of programs. We're busy, and a lot of things to do for everyone. So please come and join us. But one thing before I get started, tomorrow is voting day. The polling booths in the meeting room will start opening at 7 to 8 o'clock, 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. So please, if you haven't done so, please come early so you can avoid the lines that will start developing later on in the day. So our first program for children on Saturday, March 7th and March 10th from March 7th from 10 to 11:30, we're having STEM It Up activity. Come and create paper rockets and cotton ball launchers built out of everyday household objects. This is good for ages 6 through 12. On Tuesdays, March 17th, 24th, and 31st, from 10:45 to 11:15, we're having baby band. This includes songs, rhymes, and movement activities for babies 6 months to 18 months of age. This is for the babies and their caregivers. So this gives an opportunity for the babies to handle age-appropriate musical instruments. So that's going to be on March 17th, 24th, and 31st. On Tuesdays, March 10th, 17th, and 24th, also, and 31st, from 4:45 p.m., we are having our after-school adventures. This will include after-school games, crafts, and STEAM activities. This is good for grades 1 through 6. On Wednesdays, March 18th and 25th, from 11:30 a.m. to 12 p.m., we're going to have our usual Smarty Pants story time. Again, this is good for books, songs, story times, and movement activities. Attendance is limited, so please sign up in advance. This is good for ages 18 months up to 5 years with the parent or caregiver. On Wednesday, March 18th, for 6 to 7 p.m., we are having Annie Banani's Balloon Comedy Show. Help Annie tell fabulous stories with lots of balloon surprises along the way. And there will be a mind-blowing finale. It'll include a giant 6-foot-tall balloon. This is good for ages 4 through 12 and also the parents and caregivers. On Thursday, March 26th, from 4 to 5 p.m., we are having Make Those Hits, Cubelets. Come see our Make No librarians who will be experimenting with cubelets, which are individual robotic blocks that can be easily put together to create different things. They can be moved, spun, and lit up. This is good for ages 5 through 12. For teens, on Monday, March 16th, from 3 to 4, we are having Teen Create a Month Art Day, which will involve origami. The library will provide supplies, and this just bring your creativity, and this is good for ages 12 through 18. On Monday, March 23rd, from 3 to 4 p.m., we are having a Teen Advisory Board plus an Adult 101 program. The Teen Advisory Board is designed to draw feedback and input from the teens in the community so we can better tailor our programs to meet their needs. And the Adult 101 component will discuss organizational skills and also creating personalized vision boards. For adults, a little bit late, we're having a Mardi Gras mask craft. The reason for that is because we were supposed to have it last month, the 25th, but we had to convert the meeting room for the voting. So now we're having it on Thursday, March 19th from 6 to 7 p.m. Come and see Emmy Lamb's Carnival Mardi Gras mask making workshop. She'll provide abundance of colorful, beautiful materials to make unique masks. This is good for ages 18 and up. On Thursday, March 26th, from 6:30 to 7:30 p.m., we are honoring the 19th Amendment. with, by the creation of a ratification star box. So these boxes were created when the original 1910 was passed. So each state of passage, they were actually given a star. So whoever attends will be creating those ratification boxes. On Saturday, March 21st, from 2 to 3 p.m., we're having a movie called Fighting for Our Lives in honor of Cesar Chavez and all the people who are involved in the migrant farm workers strikes and movement. And it will especially focus on the United Farm Workers California Great Strike of 1973. This is good for ages 18 and up. And lastly, this is good for everybody. On Saturday, March 14th, from 2 to 3 p.m., we are having the Tamora School of Irish Dance. This is a dance school that is in San Dimas, and they're going to be coming out, do a presentation, and also teach some Irish dance lessons. So that's it. There's, like I said, it's a busy month. There's a little bit of something for everyone. So please come and join us, support us. I think we'll have a good time. Thank you.
And all this is on your website? So
It's on the website, and also the calendars and Parks and Rec, and also Community Center.
That's 17 events.
In 2 days.
I think the city owes the county, especially you, George, to thank you for opening up the library for this voting. And I know George told me he's going to be there till at least 10 o'clock tomorrow night. So thank you on behalf of all of us for opening up the county library. Chris.
Good evening, Council, Mayor. Since it's March already, wanted to give the Downtown Business Improvement District has 3 dates you want to save on your calendar. Cool Cruise is Saturday, April the 11th. It's going to be a fantastic show. We're looking for a record turnout. Also, the San Gabriel Valley Open Street event, which is like Ciclavia Junior, if I can say that, is April 19th. Ezra Bonita is going to be closed all the way through from San Dimas all the way to Pomona, and you can ride your bikes and walk. It's a fantastic event, all day Sunday, April 19th. And then finally, the last date is Wine Walk on May the 2nd. And we have a theme this year because May the 2nd is Derby Day, Kentucky Derby. And so we're encouraging all the participants at the Wine Walk to wear a hat in honor of the Kentucky Derby. Gentlemen and ladies, decorate your hats and let the races begin on May 2nd, Wine Walk. Thank you.
Thanks, Chris. And get your tickets early for Wine Walk, because it always sells out. So if you're interested, please get them early. Cost on that, Chris?
$45.
$45. Thank you. Anybody else for announcements? Yes. Hey, hi, Lisa.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and Council. I'm Lisa Levy-Bush with the Foothill Gold Line Construction Authority, and I just want to make sure that the community and you guys are aware that we have 4 community meetings coming up, starting this Thursday in Glendora. Of course, the most important meeting will be here in Laverne next week on Tuesday the 10th from 5:30 to 7:30 in the community center. But if people are not able to make that meeting, they can go to any of the meetings and get the same information on the Foothill Gold Line project. Major construction is starting in August. And so ahead of that, we want to make sure everyone's aware of what to expect, meet the design build team, and understand when construction is going to be impacting you. So we encourage everyone to come. I have flyers here that I'll leave maybe outside, and appreciate if anyone needs any help, questions, they can always give us a call. Thank you.
And Lisa, is it true that Habib's gonna have a taco man and margaritas and beer? I just asked.
That's a good idea.
Okay, I just
Better than Oreos. He always wants Oreos.
No.
Thank you, Lisa. Anybody else would like to make an announcement? Okay, we will move to item 5, consent calendar. Have a motion, please?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Vote, please. Thank you. We will move to item 6, public comment, emergency ordinance here.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. As the council will recall, on the January 21st meeting, the city council enacted urgency ordinance number 1091, which was a moratorium on short-term rentals, basically residential rentals less than 30 days in length. after discussion. That moratorium did allow for some exemptions if operators wish to be on the property and get signatures from their adjacent property owners, identify that they were okay with them having a short-term rentals, and those applications were allowed to be submitted and for them to be exempt from the moratorium. Under state law, the first time a moratorium is enacted, it's only for a maximum period of 45 days. That urgency ordinance expires on March 6th unless the city council takes actions to extend it further, which would be for another 10 months and 15 days, basically bringing the full moratorium to a maximum of 1 year in length. Staff doesn't believe that we need that much time to draft a permanent ordinance, but per state law, that's what this current ordinance that is before the council tonight would allow up to January 21st of 2021 for staff to come back through a fully vetted public hearing process through the Planning Commission and City Council with permanent regulations on short-term rentals. If the council's direction at the last meeting was more aligned with simply prohibiting them, we might have been able to bring an ordinance to you in time for this evening's meeting. However, because the council's direction was basically to establish some regulations so that they can continue on an ongoing basis, we do need some additional time to draft that ordinance with some regulations that we think are appropriate and would address the concerns that have been raised, as well as something that's enforceable by the city and realistic. On the dais is a form that was added that basically is also per state law, which tonight is required for the urgency ordinance to be extended, which simply states the things that we have done in the last 40 plus days to get to here. Primarily, staff has done research to other cities' ordinances, begun that research to find out how their cities regulate them. And also we've had discussions with Air BnB primarily on how we can make our ordinance enforceable, and also their past practices, on best practices on how ordinances have been efficient and achievable. So staff is recommending that the city council adopt urgency ordinance number 1092. We do have some slight revisions to that urgency ordinance. We define hosting facilities, hosting platforms. We provide a definition for that. That was directly from our conversation with Air BnB that was necessary. We also have a provision that allows for, sometimes there was some, there were 12 known short-term rental facilities in Laverne when the urgency ordinance was adopted. All those locations were provided a letter letting them know about the ordinance and the moratorium and the provisions for the exemption. We've had 4 applications. To date, 3 of those have been approved for them to continue to do so with the appropriate signatures. There's been found to be some, not discrepancies, but some confusion with what's considered adjacent or not adjacent. All properties in the city, there's different configurations. So we added a sentence that basically allows for city manager to make a decision when there's some confusion onto whether a property is considered adjacent or not adjacent. And then some other language that, again, was recommended by Air BnB in order for us to notify them if we find that a location is in violation of our moratorium, in which case that would allow them through legal channels to disable that listing on their website. So we ask that City Council adopt this ordinance. We do have every intention to get this ordinance done as soon as possible. Our realistic goal is probably within the next 6 months, but the ordinance is written to extend out the full length of the time to January 21st, provided we have some difficulties in achieving such an ordinance to bring back to you in time. With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions that the council may have.
I kind of wasn't
So contiguous plots was too challenging, huh? So we went to adjacent, and then if adjacent isn't quite clear enough, then it's the city manager's call.
I think that we've encountered some locations that it wasn't as in a standard block in Old Town where there are rectangle lots. There's different sizes and shaped properties that.
Different sizes and shapes?
Yeah.
Okay, all right, geometry. Okay, thank you.
Derek, since you're up there, let me ask you. Okay, so we know of 12 known operators that have business licenses to operate their homes for short-term rentals or rentals. Now, what about those that don't get a permit? And also on that, if you could also answer, is that I remember one of our previous meetings, someone said there were 32 known rentals.
So the 12 that we've identified didn't all have business license. Some of them did, some of them did not. Those were simply the ones that we could find by doing our own searches online. And one of the confusing things when we do those searches online is that a lot of times a single location will have multiple listings, especially if they're listing specific rooms out of that home. And on the map, they don't always show up in the exact same location. So it's in the general area, but there might be 3 listings that show as separate listings. But at the end of the day, they all tie back to a single property. So our finance division, and Nathan Statham is here, that he could answer specific questions about how many of those 12s currently had business license. But no, the 12 were all the known ones that we had.
And they are required to get business licenses if they become exempt.
Yes, all of them should have a business license. And so they were notified that in the notice, but yeah, if they can continue to operate, then they would need a business license.
Just a couple of questions. You know, this is a long time for a lot of people that have been running these businesses, and to go on with Councilmember Carter said, I'm under the impression too, there's quite a few that are out there that are just not running them, I guess you would say legally. But as a city, I don't want to miss the opportunity for us to get some kind of a tax base on that too, with some kind of a bed tax. And these people that are already doing this right now, if we can bring them into an ordinance, and I do believe that we need an ordinance, whether it be a good neighbor policy, whether it be, because it's a hot issue right now with a lot of cities. Some cities are just, the big ones, especially with the hotel industry, they are totally just outlined completely almost, making a 130-day minimum, things like that. So my concern is, one, is that the residents that are running a clean operation, that we're gonna restrict them until 2021, even if you do it in 6 months. What's that gonna do for the people that they're still gonna be running an operation? And then if we do this, we're gonna have to have, first of all, bed tax, we're also gonna have to have some kind of ordinance to police it, to make sure. But then that kicks in the good neighbor policy or what ordinance we put in place. So do we really need this long of a time? And plus we have a new council, possibly a lawyer coming in that may wanna review this and have some other ideas. Plus, I'd really like to hear from the people that have these Airbnbs or whatever, whatever they do for their rentals, open forum and discussion, because I think it's really important, because some of these people, this is their second income, as long as they're good neighbors, so I'm just kind of concerned, this is an awfully long time.
Again, it's a maximum amount of time. The ordinance that is before you this evening would allow us to make sure that the people that are not cooperating are basically kicked off those platforms. We didn't have that language the first time around, because we haven't been able to have those in-depth discussions with the hosting platforms, Air BnB primarily. So now they will work with us to make sure that people are complying in the meantime. But the idea is to bring back a permanent ordinance that's going to allow us to have those policing activities, make sure we have the regulations in place so that make sure the people that are doing it the right way are allowed to continue to do so. And they would have the TOT tax and the business license. All that's part of that ordinance update.
Are we gonna bring that back to council?
It has to be, yeah.
Well, council for discussion.
We
open
could have
discussion.
a study session once we have some more details of the information we've collected from other agencies and the things that we think that are appropriate for regulation. There could be a study session before council, before the ordinance comes back. We also could have a public workshop with operators to invite them to come in and share this. Today, I believe the council received an email that suggested maybe a minimum stay requirement. So there are different ideas out there. It's just a matter of, how much into the regulation does the council want us to get into? Because we could have a whole bunch of regulations, but then it gets down to the realistic of us policing those things and having the staff to do so. So it's kind of figuring out what the most important things are and the things that we can best regulate. So I think those are both good ideas that we can move forward with, and in the interim, while we continue to draft a permanent ordinance.
I think it's important that we cover all the bases, because after canvassing many neighborhoods in Laverne, I found a number of situations where neighborhoods where the homes are being rented out room by room for college students, and quite a few complaints. I think people are just afraid to come and say, hey, I have an issue, or they need to come to the city. And I also think too that the issue with the city manager, I think that also needs to be a council function when we get into the fact, or also the policing part. And Mr. Davis's with the adjacent stuff was a very good idea. It was a good way to put the platform out there, but I think we need to review that closely and look at that really closely if that's going to work. If you have situations where, you know, neighbor and things like that, I think it's important that we really vet that out.
Right, that was just for the interim.
No, it was a good idea.
But whether that's, you know, permanent ordinance or not is going to be based on the direction of the council.
My problem is just the length of time that these people, although 4 have only come in, you're still reviewing 1, but I think that we need to be very cautious about that because we don't want to stop something that could benefit the city as long as we bring everybody in line in order to do a tax, which would be great for us. And then also policing and also the fines that would come to us also. So.
Tim, I had some of those same concerns, so I met with staff over this when it came out to us. And the March 6th deadline, it expires on March 6th.
Right.
All we are doing is extending it if we went the 9 months. But as Eric said, that it really should take less time than that. So what if we went, staff could do it in 6 months, and we have that on the books, and then all the details, such as the letter we received from a resident today, and all these little details that you were even talking about a workshop, all those are great ideas, but we don't have to decide that tonight. We just need to extend
I'm
this.
just, that's my concern because we have residents out there that some of this is their living the way they live. And I don't want to mess that up, and there are people that are running a real good business. It's just that, it's just a long time. Maybe we could reduce it down. Or...
Well, I think going to Robin's point, I don't think they're gonna wait till the last minute. That's gonna just give them the time to have the workshop and that kind of stuff. So I don't feel as though we need to light a fire under anybody. But I do think that we need to give more time so that we can put together a well-constructed ordinance that doesn't have a bunch of holes in it that aren't enforceable or that don't provide the revenues to the city that we want. So I'm fine with an ordinance like this because I don't believe that this ordinance will survive the 10.5 months. I think the new ordinance will be shaped up in short order, but I wouldn't want to have to come back and extend again and interrupt the process of getting the ordinance. I want the permanent ordinance to be done as quickly as possible, and I really don't want to have to deal with administrative burdens to try to make sure that, oh wait, we have to take a pause again and another extension. So I agree, I don't want to, I hope that we're not waiting until January, and I don't believe we are. And I do want to make sure that we continue with everything going on the way it's going, which is why I'm interested in making sure we have this moratorium in place, because if we don't, then everything breaks loose. But we're starting to get into comments, so.
One last thing I think is important for us to realize is that with 12 properties, we already have 1/3 of those pretty much in the exempt category, and I'm sure that there's some other ones that are working in that direction. So it's not like we're cutting everybody off because 1/3 of them have already basically aren't able to continue their business with their clients and help them earn.
We are also aware of some of those 12 that have voluntarily or, you know, complying with the code, basically taking their listing off the website. So whether or not they're going to apply in the future or not, I don't know, but not all of them are currently listed that were originally listed.
Okay, well, let's go to public comment. This is a public hearing, so we would like to open public comment. If you would please come to the podium, address your concerns, fill out a blue card, let us know who you are, and please begin.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. I'm Linda Wilkinson, 31-year Laverne resident. This evening, I'm not going to talk about the lawsuit I have against the mayor and the city regarding my 3rd Street property that was damaged by the Cases deal. I'm here to speak about my home on Old Ranch Road that's now referred to by some as the Air BnB house. I own 12 properties, 5 of which are in Laverne. I have 29 long-term tenants. Long and short-term property management is what I do. 19 of the 21 years that I have lived here, I have had long and short-term rentals between the main house and carriage house. The estate covers almost 2 acres, with the main house of approximately 6,000 square feet with 7 bedrooms, and the carriage house of 1,000 square feet with 2 bedrooms. I have been an Airbnb host since May of 2014, with 409 reviews, out of which less than 1% are unfavorable. In December, I became aware that Kelly Racine was on a campaign knocking on doors, spreading lies that my guests are making meth in my living room that there was a squatter on my property. I wanted a guest to drive drunk, that an Uber driver was knocking at her door, although Uber drivers are not allowed to exit their vehicles to look for guests, that there are weddings at my house practically every other weekend, although I haven't hosted a wedding at my house in nearly 2.5 years, and so on. With her pack of untruths, she asked neighbors to sign her petition against my home. The Racines have never expressed any issue to me about my rentals. When I heard that it was being brought before the council, I contacted Police Captain Flores and asked if she would be willing to mediate between the Racines and me. She said that mediation was a good idea and would get back to me. Captain Flores responded by email saying that Kelly Racine was willing to meet. A few days later, Captain Flores followed up that the Racines had changed their minds and were not willing to mediate their issues. My next avenue of resolution was to respond with a detailed report which included a history of the neighbor to neighbor problems with the Racines and a proposed good neighbor policy for short-term rentals. This report was provided to council members, Captain Flores, City Manager Russi, and r.a.g. Community Development Director, along with my offer to provide my owner's password for 24 hours to access my Air BnB account so that they could review how I run a responsible and successful business. I also offered the password to my security system to review the recorded video activity in the common areas inside and outside of my home. Included in my report were declarations from third parties who have had contact with Kelly. Carolina Henderson, former wife of George Henderson, wrote about their son's wedding reception at my home in September of 2016. I quote, "I was assisting my father in getting in the car, and all of a sudden, out of nowhere, Mrs. Racine came out and started screaming at me, saying, 'This is not a fucking wedding venue.' She kept screaming the phrase. I quickly put my father in the car so that he would not hear her horrible language." Carolina goes on to write, quote, "My personal opinion is that Mrs. Racine is jealous of the adjacent property, being that she has an inferior lot which is surrounded by the beautiful grounds and structure of Grace Manor, and will continue to do anything she can to harm its owner." She closes with, "I want to explain the differences in her behavior from the day I met her to explain the reception to the evening when she became irrational, unapproachable, and absolutely vulgar. I hope that you would consider the source of the false accusations." Next declaration from Kimberly, who manages my property occasionally. February 2019, a large pine tree fell from my yard into the Racine's backyard. Kimberly went outside to assess the situation. Quote, "Kelly was in the yard yelling things like, 'What the fuck?' as soon as..."
Yeah,
I'm offended.
I'm quoting from.
I don't care.
Okay, I was going to say F word. As soon as she saw me, she started screaming while flailing her arms, saying, "Get over here and look at this S word. Oh, you won't come over here. You're just a low-life housekeeper." Kelly asked where I was. Kimberly told her I was in Thailand. Kelly's response was, "On vacation again. The rich just get richer." Kimberly wrote, "I was afraid, felt physically threatened by Kelly, and went back into the house. I had to ask my backup person to rush to the house to deal with the Racines and the police about the fallen tree." Kelly called the police 2 other times involving Kimberly. Once because she parked her husband's truck on the street, and another time because Kelly said a dog was off its leash, although it was tied to a pole. December 2019. Alex Beltran, owner of the company I hired to top and thin out the pine trees in my home, said a few straggling pieces fell into the yard of the Racines. Kelly called the police. Alex immediately came to the property. Alex's declaration stated Kelly told him, "You guys are a S company." I told her I was there to sort things out, not to argue. Her response was, "Oh, shut the F up. You Mexicans aren't going to fix shit."
Hey,
That's enough. Stop. That's enough.
I read this as it goes towards the character of the complaining party, and because the neighbor-to-neighbor conflicts have nothing to do with Airbnb and short-term rentals. During the first council meeting regarding Airbnb, the owner of several short-term houses spoke about how he runs his business and how financially beneficial it has been for his family. The mayor asked Loopy to get his number, as he was a good host, yet the following meeting, his rentals were banned because he does not have an owner on site. Good for Joe and the couple dozen other short-term owners who have ignored the moratorium. I, on the other hand, was the first to comply. Councilmember Davis's 6 adjacent property waiver is not an arbitrary number. My property has 6 adjacent neighbors. The Racines will never sign anything, even if it was permission for me to have a goldfish. Airbnb does police their hosts and guests. Here's a copy of the Airbnb complaint form. In the Airbnb community, it's well known that hosts with complaints will be reviewed and, if deemed appropriate, shut down. I'm going to respond to a specific accusation by Kelly as it gives perspective. Kelly found the review of an unhappy guest and spun the truth to say that I wanted a guest to drive drunk. December 2018, Dominique in part wrote, "Had a few problems with the owner due to an extra unexpected guest. A friend of mine got too drunk to drive, suggested he could sober up at the Airbnb before he drove. Who wants a drunk driver on the road? But owner did not understand. Here's reality. I wrote to Dominique. At 3:45 a.m., our security system alerted me to persons. It showed 3 people. What's going on? Our house guide states that we do not allow additional guests. Dominique, I'm sorry, I know it's my husband's brother. He was unable to drive home, so we are having him sleep on the floor. If there's any problem, we can Uber him to his home right away. I'm so sorry for the inconvenience." I responded, yes, he needs to Uber if he can't drive. Our guidelines are clear. We do not allow extra guests for many reasons. Dominique, I can sure get him an Uber. The banter continues a few more times over the next hour. Me, it's now 5:20 in the morning. You stated 30 minutes ago that you would make him leave right now. I have been awakened for close to 1 hour and 45 minutes. I phoned Airbnb support and asked for assistance as I terminated the reservation for violation of the house rules. That's how I run my business. The last thing I want is for hosts to be harmed in any way because of the bigot and racist who is my neighbor.
What?
Maybe everyone isn't friendly with their neighbor, but does that mean their property rights and incomes should be limited?
George Richards, please.
Good evening, and thank you for listening to me. My understanding is that we complied with the ordinance, the exemption. We should be good to go. Because I've gotten all my neighbors' signatures and a small business license, and with Nathan. So is that my understanding?
That would be through the Community Development Department. If you've satisfied the requirements, then I would say you're correct.
Okay. My other thing is on transient occupancy tax. I would like the city to work with Airbnb, because I contacted them, so where they can put it into our listing, so there will be an automatic collection. Because they said, well, you can ask your guests to pay you when they come. I don't want to do that because it looks bad. You know, when they come, you're asking them for more money. But they do work with cities where they would collect the occupancy tax automatically, you know, they would add it to it. So then I don't know, they pay you directly, or I don't know how that works, but if the city can work on that, they said that for me to mention that to you so you can contact Airbnb.
heard
and
you
work
say.
on that occupancy tax.
I got a yes from Eric, so.
Okay. And my last point is, there's a lot of talk about Airbnb. There's a lot of groups in the city of Lorraine that are doing this, not Airbnb, not just Airbnb. I want to make sure that they're all having to comply with all these provisions too. So,
Thank you.
okay?
Thank you very much, George. Okay, anybody else like to address this issue?
Evening, council. My name is Rick Bowen. I just got a couple of questions, actually. One statement, Mayor mentioned lighting a fire, but a year isn't kind of a slow burn. And he sure lit a fire last time. It took all of, what, one meeting to pass an ordinance? Out of curiosity, who vetted the signatures on the petition? I remember sitting here a year and a half ago when r.a.g. submitted 67 signatures regarding not wanting the water rates raised, and the city attorney indicated that those weren't acceptable because the city couldn't vet them. So who vetted the 150? Also, out of the 3 that were given exemptions, did they all have business licenses prior? So were they operating a legal business then, or did you exempt them afterwards? And lastly, you've talked about changes in the verbiage that you guys all have. I think, in all fairness, you got to read that so everybody has access to hear what the changes are going to be, rather than passing something that no one is aware of until they have to read it later. Thank you.
Anybody else like it? Pam?
Hi, I just have a question in the wording. It's a couple different ways here, and I'm not sure, as Eric said, it's like we can have, up to a year, basically. But it says here extended through January 21st, which is kind of that's the end. It doesn't say, no further than, there could be less. So I just want to know if the wording is, it will go until then, and that is that, or if it's done earlier, it's done earlier.
If it's done earlier, then this ordinance will be repealed and replaced with the permanent.
That's how it's written, or that's what you're saying?
That's how it works.
Okay.
Thank you. Anybody else like to address this issue? Okay. Public hearing is closed. Do we have the ordinance that we can read?
Well, it was posted on the website as part of the agenda. It hasn't changed.
So say no.
Eric went through the 3 or 4 minor changes from the moratorium, so that's all that's changed.
Comments?
Well, I want to make sure we get all of our questions and concerns out before we take a vote, because the vote has to be a 4/5 to pass. So there is only 4 of us here, so I want to make sure we get all of our questions out, our concerns. And so, Tim, you mentioned timing. Would you rather have it 6 months?
I don't want to strap the hands of our personnel. I would like to see 6 months, but I want to be realistic about it too. So-
Well, they said, I checked with them, I said, okay, it seemed long to me too.
Yeah.
If you feel that we could get it done in that time, they said 6 months we could do it.
I would say that I would prefer that,
Okay,
if that, to make a motion that we could go to 6 months
yeah.
from the date. That way, that give, Eric, you're good with that?
We believe we can do it in that amount of time.
6 months, but make a motion, change it to 6 months.
Yeah, I mean, if you're through with discussion, I mean, if you
Let's don't make a motion yet.
Yeah.
There may be other
Okay.
things we
make the
want to
motion, just
Wait.
say instead of the
Instead of
date
the-
stated, that 6 months from today.
Okay.
That's my only concern too.
Well, I think that in the public comments, there were some good comments that were brought up that need to be taken into consideration for the final ordinance, but I don't think they need to be taken into consideration for this extension. I think the extension it may not be perfect, but I think it's working. I think we've gotten a few that probably don't need it because they're not renting for less than 30 days. And some that have applied for it have gotten the signatures that they needed. So I'm fine with the amended, the sense of an amended version that shortens the time frame to 6 months, and then I'm good with that.
The only thing that I have is those that are in compliance, I would love to see them operate because I think the need is there. I think it's good for our community to have the income. I think people want to come to Laverne. I think it's a good city. We have the university, so we have people coming to visit their students and their kids and so forth. So not that we have to not abide by the rules, but I would like to see as many as possible if that is the desire that people want to go in our community. So,
I agree with that also. I think it's important that we bring everybody in line, but make it an opportunity for everybody to come to our community and spend money. This is great. Motion would be to make it a 6-month extension and not the 12-21.
And I'll second that.
Your motion is
6 months to
Adopt the ordinance with the change that it is a 6-month extension, not a year, January 21st.
So I
6
guess
months from when?
from now or from the
Today.
original? From
6 months from today.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay.
And I second it.
An emergency ordinance of the City Council of the City of Laverne, County of Los Angeles, City of California, extending and amending ordinance number 1091, establishing a moratorium on short-term rentals on residential property.
Well done, Dan. Nicely read. So before we get into item number 7, which is public comments, I would like to make a motion that we limit public comments to 3 minutes tonight. We have a lot of support from our audience tonight, so we don't need to put up lights or anything like that to tell people that their 3 minutes is over.
Should we vote on it, please? We have a motion.
A second.
Now it's unanimous. Okay. So we still have, if you get up and talk once, please use your full 3 minutes and let somebody else speak. If there's something that has already been said, if you want to say something different, that's great. And we will start with public comment. Anything that's not in the agenda, please come to the podium. We have speaker cards. Please fill them out.
I thought for a second my motion was going to be needless.
Oh, Pam Mary. Okay, so I just wanted to make one comment regarding the last meeting. When Chris mentioned that there was a protest on President's Day in front of his restaurant. I didn't see a protest. I saw about a dozen people with the pepper for mayor signs, a few on each corner. Had nothing to do with Chase's restaurant. Nobody was screaming or yelling. They were kind of like waving and saying hello and smiling to people who were driving by, and some people would honk and whatever. So that's what it was. There was no protest. There was no screaming or yelling. Just people out there being, I don't know, patriotic for President's Day.
Thank you. Anybody, Jeff?
I want to make sure you hear this too. I've come to find out that with all the new bike lanes that we've got coming into the city, that they are going to be adding green paint to these as well to make them more noticeable, I guess. And I would like serious consideration to go against doing this additional step because 1, it's an eyesore. 2, it's an unnecessary waste of resources for the labor and the paint cost. And 3, I think it's dangerous. And my simple example for that is the one time I've gone down on my motorcycle, I was doing a lane change on the freeway, and I hit the brake while I hit a lane line that was wet, and my bike just went right down. And there's a lot less contact on a bicycle than there is on a motorcycle as well. So it becomes a danger to motorcycles that are perhaps entering that portion for a turn, and also a danger to the bicycles. So I'd really like to not have green paint on the bike lanes.
Thank you, Jeff. Anybody else?
Good evening. So this morning I was taking a hike on the trail. Your name, please. Oh, Keith Jones.
Thank you, sir.
This morning I was taking a hike on the trail that runs north from Orangewood. And about 5 or 6 minutes into my hike, what have I come across? Right next to the hiking trail. But a homeless man who had pitched a tent, and clearly had spent the night there. His bicycle was there. And one can only imagine where he would relieve himself with this beautiful creek running right by. So I decided to report this to the police department. And I thought, and I talked to the chief about this, I thought I was going to get blown off. And I thought I was already preparing, and I was going to come and complain to the city council tonight about getting blown off on something that's very important. Instead, just the opposite happened. I was treated fairly, my complaint was taken seriously, and then after leaving the police department, after talking with Detective Shavira, I went up to where I told them this issue was, and there were already 2 police officers up there checking it out. So I thought, if I was going to come down here and complain about something that I thought was going to happen, that it was only fair that I come down and compliment the police department and city services. So that's that. But I do have an observation about Ms. Wilkerson, when she was speaking up here. She was using some colorful language that some people might find offensive, and that she was muzzled, if you will, to stop using that language. And I think if you check with your city attorney, he would tell you that although it might be uncomfortable for people to hear, if they don't like it, they can leave, that she and anybody else who wants to get up and use an F word in further description of their issue has every right to do that. So I just thought I'd pass that along. But thank you for the police department.
Anybody else like to speak under public comment? Okay.
Wait.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't see that. Sorry.
He's tired.
Yes, Mark Gutierrez from the Laverne Police Officers Association. Again, I wasn't going to come up here and speak, but after hearing this gentleman, the first part of his comment, complimenting the police department, we very much appreciate that. And with that said, I really encourage folks in regards to the tax measure, if you like that kind of service, vote yes on LV. And I'll leave it at that.
Mark, I think Keith is going to do that. Okay, anybody else like to speak under public comment? Okay, we'll move to item 8 under council comments. Okay.
I want to first thank Dan Kesey and Anthony and his public work crew. Up in Golden Hills Road, we had an open park that had a drop-off, and people were walking on the streets and then the curb. And a few months back, Dan Sperling had mentioned it to me, one of our neighbors, and I mentioned it to Dan Kesey, and they had a conversation. And they put curb all the way across, all the way around Golden Hills to Esperanza. And then there was an issue with the drop-off, and they were going to put up a metal fence, and it wasn't too appeasing and appealing to the eye. And Dan immediately stopped, his crew stopped, and his crew were just exceptional. Even his contractors are exceptional. But they backfilled it so that there's no fence. It's this natural walk-off, and all I see now are kids riding their scooters. They're off the street. So kudos to your department. What an excellent job. And Mr. Sperling, thank you. Mr. Sperling. Thank you. I just want to say that whether elected mayor or not, it's been an honor. It's been an honor and privilege to serve this great community and the residents. It's also been an honor to serve with my people at the dais, my council members. And last but not least, it's been an absolute honor to serve our employees of this great community. Thank you all.
Thank you. I would just say, vote yes on LV and make sure you vote. Thank you.
But I don't think we've seen a 7:20 closing of a meeting.
I wasn't gonna say anything because that jinxes it.
But Lisa was here earlier for Gold Line, and she told you what I was gonna tell you about the meeting next Tuesday night, right here at our community center. Come see the layouts. They're gonna have the plans for the station design, and you could ask questions about the Gold Line. If you can't make that one, they have the flyers. I think she stuck them outside. And grab one. It shows one in San Dimas, Claremont, Laverne, and Pomona, so you can attend that. But I did want to give kudos. Kids are always my thing. We all went to the softball, girls softball grand opening on Saturday, and it was wonderful. They have quite a few kids. I mean, they had a home run derby where little ones, 6 and under, she even hit 4 or 6 home runs. And, you know, all the way up to 19 home runs for the
Robin, tell them about,
12-year-olds.
you can tell them about the coaches and what they're.
Oh, yes, so
That's great.
every year, girls softball likes to entertain the kids by having the coaches all do something. So normally it's a hula hoop contest, and men don't have the hips, they really can't do that.
They stink.
So this year, the
Fruit roll-up.
fruit roll-ups that are on a long string that you have to unroll, they had to see who out of all the coaches could eat it the fastest. So not only did they have to eat one whole one, that they brought the top 3 to do a whole nother one. So it was, I mean, they had it gone like that though.
Oh, I've never seen anybody suck up a football like that. It's gone.
So, but you know, if you get a chance and you want some good entertainment, go down to Wheeler Park any night of the week, weekends, and watch the girls play softball. Give your support to them also. And Little League is the 14th. Their grand opening for their season. Yeah, oh yes, you go ahead and talk about that.
First of all, I'd like to thank everybody for being here tonight. This has been a really fun evening for all of us. A couple things, you're talking about the girls softball. Rivera Park, which is the main field, is named in honor of Jordan Rivera, who died in Las Vegas on October 1st. Died in her mother's arms in a gunshot wound at that concert. So it's a special place in Laverne, and when you go there, you just can't help but feel a pretty special place. So not only is it a great place to watch softball, it's a great place to honor a person and a family. Second thing is Measure LV is you know, none of us like to taxes, but remember who we're doing this for. We're doing it for our kids and our grandkids. Securing our future, I think, is critically important for all of us. Third thing is I had the honor of attending the Pomona Valley Hospital Steadhart Gala Saturday night, and this is something that started 40 years ago in 1980 when there was a huge gift from the Stead family to the hospital with one thing and one thing only. I want to have a heart center that can be used by local residents. That dream was solidified with the hiring of Ken Brown, who was a doctor, brought in Dr. Tomati. That name may sound familiar to a number of people in here, probably the finest heart surgeon around. And today, it's the only heart hospital in California that has all 6 blue ribbons. So it is a special place to be, and they honored the Steads Saturday night for what they have done to this hospital. So it's a treat to have that in our backyard. Last thing is, tomorrow's an important election. Please vote. Our future is in your hands, so please vote and let us hear what you have to say. And we are adjourned until our next meeting 2 weeks from tonight.